Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets, how to increase your market business success while providing people with fresh food. Farmers markets are essential. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer or food maker selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast. This week, our guest is Emily Josenhans, founder and CEO at Domaine Santé, selling a natural sweetener made exclusively from wine grapes at farmers markets and beyond. Hey everyone, I'm one of your hosts, Bridget Myers. I'm a longtime farmers market manager, Vendor 101 co-teacher, and education coordinator at Farmers Market Pros.
And I'm Kat Fields-White, Director of San Diego Markets, still an active farmers market manager, schlepping barricades and posting signs, founder of Farmers Market Pros, and host of Intense, the Farmers Market Conference, and the Farmers Market Pros community.
And I'm Justine Marzoni-Mead, Tent Talk producer, marketing director for Farmers Market Pros, and logistics coordinator for Intense, the Farmers Market Conference 2022, coming up really soon.
Really soon.
Really soon.
Within weeks.
So
what are we even doing here sitting in front of
Why
microphones?
are we recording
We should be out
this?
doing something else.
We have too much other stuff.
And if you're listening, you should be getting your tickets. What are you doing?
Yeah,
You don't have them
if you
already.
don't have your tickets, you need to jump off and do that right now. Filling up. Today's episode of Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is supported by Sticker Mule, the fastest and easiest way to buy custom printed labels, stickers, and other promotional products. In a few minutes online, you can upload your designs and illustrations, and Sticker Mule will turn them into custom buttons and packaging in days. They offer free online proofs, free worldwide shipping, and super fast turnaround. And if you order a quantity, they oftentimes stick a little bottle of Sticker Mule hot sauce in the box. Always a fun bonus. Find more information at stickermule.com or by clicking their logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Welcome back to Tent Talk. Today we are talking with Emily Josenhans, founder and CEO at Domaine Santé. After working as a clinical and private nutritionist and witnessing the struggles of her clients' sugar addictions, she set out to develop a healthier alternative. Combining her nutritional knowledge with her husband Jeff Josenhans' expertise in viniculture, Domaine Santé California Grape Nectars was created. Was born. We're so happy to have you, Emily. Thanks so much for being here on Tent Talk today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So if you just want to give us a little background on kind of the origin of Domaine Santé and like how you got started and all that, your professional kind of background before you got started.
Sure. So it was definitely quite a transition moving from service to product, as I'm sure you can imagine. It was actually quite natural, though. As you just mentioned, sugar is such a prolific issue in my profession. So I found myself telling every client, giving them recommendations on different types of sugar alternatives to use. But the underlying issue I had was that I just wasn't happy with any of them. Honey and agave, they're actually very concentrated in sugar. Agave is really unsustainable as well, which, is quite an issue in so many ways these days. Stevia, the more processed types of sugar alternatives, they actually have incredibly terrible digestive and metabolic issues that they can cause long term. So I just knew there had to be something better out there. And it just so happens I love wine also. So I looked to wine grapes and did the research and found that they're just incredible nutritional powerhouses and decided to see what we could make from there. So that's really how it all began. It was just a brainstorm between me and my husband, drinking a glass of wine and knowing that we could do something with this, with these grapes.
Did it start out as something that was going to be like a sideline to what you were doing professionally as a service provider? Or did you always kind of have in mind that you were going to turn this into like a big business where you're selling at markets and you're selling wholesale and things? Did it start as more of a side thing or more of a big kind of project you knew that was going to happen?
No, it was definitely a side project, more of like a passion project. Both of us still had our full-time jobs. We were thinking about this in all of our free time, brainstorming what grapes to use, where we were going to source from, how we were going to get everything down to San Diego. I mean, it was just taking each little piece one step at a time. And piecing it all together, the same year we actually got married. So that was really fun to try to plan a wedding and start a business in the same year. But we made it work and launched the business literally the week after we got back from our honeymoon.
Well, you just want to test that marriage right away. Let's see if this is going to work. Let's figure it out from the get-go.
Did you serve, was Domaine Santé on the menu at the reception? Did you do a little sort of focus group there while you had a lot of people together?
We actually did have a cocktail with it in there. That is quite true.
Great.
Yeah.
You have like your gown on and a little clipboard, like taking notes on people's reactions.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So where do you source your grapes for your product?
So we found that there was quite a surplus of grapes in Lodi. So Lodi is a longtime wine region. They have some of the vineyards we work with, the vines have been there for over 60 years. They're not new in the winemaking arena. And they tend to have quite a surplus each year that winemakers aren't even using. So we literally use those same grapes that would be used in winemaking to produce our product. And the grapes are coming almost entirely from Lodi, but also a little from Mendocino.
Nice. So how do you, tell us a little bit, just for listeners who haven't tried it or seen it, what is your product and what's in it and how do you suggest people use it?
Sure, absolutely. That's some of our most common questions. So it's called Grape Nectar. That's what we named it as. We went back and forth between grape syrup and grape nectar quite extensively, but we settled on grape nectar because we find it most comparable, I guess, in viscosity and texture to like an agave nectar. It's not quite as thick as a syrup would be. So that's how we came up with the name. And the product itself has really beautiful nuances of the grapes themselves. So what we wanted was really to feature what the grape tastes like right off the vine. That was always our goal in the product. So, just like you would think of winemaking or different wine varietals, our grape nectars have different flavors based on just the simple character of the grape. So there's definitely, of course, a sweetness to these grapes that we're sourcing, but there's also, these beautiful undertones of like molasses, and you get like a candied apple in our original blend, or like a burst of citrus in our Alsace blend. And people just love like the rich berry flavor of our Bordeaux Rouge.
Nice. Yeah, I know it's like such a hit at the markets and it's really tasty. I've had it myself many times. Thank
you. So,
this is a promo for your product. So what led you to sell at farmers markets? Like, was it the first avenue that you went to? And like, why did you start there? What was your relationship with farmers markets before that?
Well, I'm from Arizona. So farmers markets are nothing like they are in Arizona here. I mean, I'm sure, as you know, I've always been in love with farmers markets. The abundance of produce that we get year round is just remarkable. And I really just thought, since we were kind of bringing those flavors of natural fruit to the table or, to your kitchen, that it was a natural fit in farmers markets to kind of go down that avenue. We initially actually brought the product to experts in food and beverage, just kind of like friends and contacts, just to get almost, I guess, a legitimate go for it kind of pat on the back. But then, of course, I see everyone from, moms to kids to grandmas. I mean, everybody uses sugar. So I knew that it would be a great way to reach people and, of course, see their reaction firsthand. I mean, there's nothing more valuable than being able to talk to your customer right there in person.
For sure. And at the market, I would think that you're reaching like a real broad audience, just like you said, like there's all ages and all, since your product is so versatile, it can kind of fit with whoever's shopping for anything or making anything in their kitchen. So yeah, that makes sense. And then you took our Vendor 101 class, didn't you?
I did. I did.
I was like, it was so long ago. I'm like, I think I remember.
Way back when.
Yeah. So yeah, we like to hear those kind of success stories. It's been nice to see your business grow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we always talk about on this podcast, outside of this podcast, when we're at the market, that like one of the many special things about the farmers market is that you can find these like really unique items and products that you can't find in grocery stores. And I think your product, I mean, now you can't find Domaine Santé in some grocery stores, but your product definitely kind of falls into that category. But it also means that farmers market vendors with unique products have to do a lot more explanation and education to their customers than, a farmer selling carrots. So do you find this to be true with your line of products, that you have to give a lot of explanation to the shoppers you see at the market?
Absolutely. That is 100% true for us. I think for us, knowing that I was bringing a new product to the market and something that hadn't been done before, I knew that our tactic and trying to figure out what actually resonated with customers was going to be difficult. And I thought the farmers market was kind of a perfect testing ground. And we still to this day do that. I mean, we're always trying to innovate how we're pitching the product and what we're telling people. And, you can literally see people's reaction on their faces when you say something that resonates with them. So that for us has been an absolutely invaluable piece of our process and our development over the years.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what do you find to be the most challenging about having a unique product line?
Well, the education side. And actually, I mean, for us, we kind of fall on like a really interesting gray line of being something that's used in beverage so abundantly as well as food. So I think it kind of creates sometimes a bit of confusion. Is this, we literally get the question all the time, is this wine?
It does kind of look like wine.
Yeah, that's
like I mean,
and,
our packaging.
What's the difference between it and wine? How do you have to purposefully stop the fermentation process?
Yes, that's exactly right. We use the same grapes, like I mentioned, that would be used in winemaking. They're pressed the same, they're filtered off the same juice goes into the mechanism to create our grape nectar. But instead of fermenting, of course, we're using a low heat method to remove some of the water from the juice of, essentially concentrating the product. But we're using that low heat to really be able to keep the antioxidants and all the flavor in the product. That's always our goal. And then we actually have to do like a kind of like a flash pasteurization to heat seal the bottles to make them to basically kill all the yeast so it doesn't ferment and blow up, because we did have that happen at one point.
Uh-oh. A little excitement.
Yeah, that was it. That was a bit of R&D and luckily something that happened early on that we learned from.
That sounds messy.
Yeah, it does.
Sticky.
It was a bit.
So you do have some awesome staff members that you have selling at the markets for you, and I imagine doing other aspects of your business. So how do you choose your market staff, and how much training do they need to understand the product? It sounds like you have a really a deep well of knowledge about viniculture and wine and grapes. I just like to drink wine. I don't know anything about it. But so how do you choose your market staff, and how much do they need to know about all that stuff prior to being hired or working at the market?
It's pretty extensive for us, and it's pretty particular because education, I think, is definitely a really important factor for our product. People have a lot of deep nutritionally based questions a lot of times. So our training program is pretty extensive and something I've developed over the years. But really, I think what it comes down to is passion. I actually have people like sell me the product as part of the interview process. And I think there's nothing more genuine in working in business in general than people getting excited about what they do.
Yeah, it's true. It always comes across, when you're buying something from somebody at the market, it's kind of the twinkle in their eye or the way that they speak about it, that they're not just trying to get through the day, but they really do admire the product that they're selling. So That's important.
Exactly.
I mean, we talk about that in Vendor 101, that in the case of farmers markets, passion meeting profit is really literal, because you're not just putting it in a box and sending it off. If you're not excited about what you're making, that's going to come across at the market too.
Yeah.
So if you've just picked something because it's a good profit margin, or because you've read that there's a demand for it, but you're not really excited about it, not going to work at the farmers market, because you're face to face with those customers.
Yeah, and it will just wear you away.
Totally, yeah.
Week after week.
Whittle you away.
Yeah.
And if your staff is not educated and excited and they can't talk about your product and they're just confusing customers, you're also not going to make enough sales to be able to stay in the market. So it's just really getting that great staff and training them correctly, I think, is so important. And you do a great job with your staff. I feel like everyone that works in your booth is great, and it's important.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's an extension of yourself. So you really have to find those people that you can kind of train and resonate with you as well, to help extend your sales and your presence.
Yeah. So in addition to farmers markets, you have quite a few wholesale accounts, and you sell your product other places. So what are those different avenues of sales? And in terms of customer education and communicating what your product is and how it's used, how do you do that when you're not able to be face-to-face with your customers right there at the farmer's market?
That is another great question, and something we struggled with for a long time. So I think initially our strategy was really finding buyers that would take the time and be as passionate about what they were doing in their stores and shops, to know that they would be, kind of our extension once again. They would be as passionate about selling the product and take the time to educate the customer. For me, it was a lot of training of those type of people, educating them as well, which we have, of course, a myriad of different marketing materials that we use. But really what was the game changer more recently that we developed actually during COVID was a QR code sticker that we put on the bottles, so that no matter if it's a salesperson or a customer, that they get a 55-second pitch from me telling them what the product is, how to use it, a quick synopsis background of the company, as much as we could cram into 55 seconds. That has really, really helped our conversion when obviously I'm not there hand selling the product.
Wow, that's really smart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good idea.
And I'm sure that just, thinking about working in some of the shops that you sell at, that would just be so helpful for employees to be like, oh, we got this new product in, or it's a new employee that doesn't know all the products that they have in their shop yet. Just be like, okay, here's this little pitch. They can learn about it and then explain that to customers when they're asking questions.
That's right.
Exactly.
Or just refer the customers to it.
Yeah.
Super
Watch
helpful.
the video.
So smart. So you're kind of recently back at farmers markets, right? Only in the last month or so. And I know our markets were closed for a little while, and then very short while actually, but then they were closed to grocery vendors for another little bit of time, and then we gradually got back to the point where we had space for everybody. But you waited even a fair amount of time after that, after we had welcomed back a lot of other grocery vendors, after strict COVID protocols started to be lifted. What was going on with Domaine Santé during that time?
Well, I think we really paused. Our business, I think, was operating very transactionally. We were just kind of getting by, grinding away. We were focusing on, I think, too many things. And we really went back to the basics and worked on business development. I worked on personal development. I took a little time off, believe it or not.
Whoa,
yeah.
Nice.
What was that like?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And we really just kind of looked back to how to target our customers. I mean, we went really back to our roots and revamped the website, just worked on a lot of different projects. We dabbled in e-commerce, which is extremely expensive, and realized, shipping glass across the country might not be the best idea. So we did a little bit of everything, but I think what ended up happening and what I what brought us back to farmers markets was that personal just connection wasn't there, and we wanted to kind of test some of our new strategies, and we thought there was no better way than to literally get face to face with people again. And it's been amazing. I mean, it's really given me a sense of renewed energy, passion. I think it's just it's different because I think people view our products a little differently now too. I've had a very different experience coming back to the markets than I think pre-COVID. And so I think for us, it was definitely the right time to come back. And we definitely wanted people, of course, to be able to taste the product again and be comfortable tasting. So that's another reason we kind of waited a little bit longer than a lot of vendors, because tasting the product is so important to our sales that we wanted to make sure we were going to have enough people comfortable doing that to make it worthwhile for us too.
Yeah, interesting. We've had a lot of conversations about the difference between being able to sample and not being able to sample, and certain vendors finding that it actually was an advantage not to sample because the money that they spent on sampling didn't really increase the sales by the same amount as they were investing, and other vendors find it kind of critical to do. A lot of interesting things. So we were really happy to see you back at markets. I know that some of your regular customers were really happy to see you back. We had people asking about you when you were gone. And I know that a lot of your fellow vendors are happy to see you back because that big market family missed its missing members during COVID protocols and things. So how many markets are you back in now? How many markets a week are you doing?
Just the Saturday Little Italy Mercado.
Oh, just the one.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. Good. Well, thanks for choosing us.
Super special.
One and only.
So you're saying that the customers are viewing your product differently now and that you're selling differently. And in what ways? That's interesting.
I think people are more thoughtful now. I think people really, I think perhaps people took farmers markets a little for granted, perhaps before COVID. We would find people just kind of zipping by, grabbing a sample and walking away versus, now, of course, we're hand sampling each individual cup for them to taste. But I find that they spend more time, they ask more questions, they're more thoughtful. The level of question is just really engaging. Everything about it, I just find to be like a deeper experience. And it's been really enjoyable to get, I think, these new customers that we've been getting, as well as, of course, see the old ones back and hear that they're still using their Grape nectar, which is great. But we have really, I think, gained a lot of new loyal customers that, of course, probably wouldn't have found our product any other way.
Yeah, farmers markets in general, I think, saw a little bit of that switch since we had to line people up and count them in and out of the blocks. Those folks that were really just out there to kind of take a selfie and listen to the music and grab a sample didn't want to wait in those lines to do that. It was really the serious shoppers that would wait in the line and mask up and, come in and deal with all the restrictions and things. And I think we attracted a lot of new people that way as well who weren't comfortable grocery shopping inside, really appreciated that the farmers markets were there. I think people maybe have an increased awareness of their health and how nutrition affects that since they've tasted fresher food and been concerned about health and immune systems and things. So, yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that because I think we really have seen a little bit of a shift in our overall customer base because of that. There's lots and lots of people back, but it's kind of a different feel. It's not, it's definitely, they're realizing it's a grocery store, it's essential, it's not a party. It's kind of a party, but it's also an essential way to get the food that you need.
Yeah.
So have you changed your farmers market operation much since you've been back? I know that you've got some emphasis on the soda bar now. Is that changing how you do business and how you train your staff and how the customers react to you?
Well, I mean, for us, the number one question has always been, how do you use the product? Even though, obviously sweetener is the most ubiquitous product in every kitchen in the world, or at least definitely this country. But I think people just want that like easy go-to kind of, how do you use the product? And the soda bar was our answer to that. And I think there's so many other options, of course, for beverages at the farmers market, but we really love being able to have someone taste the product by itself, just straight from the bottle, and then be able to see a really easy application. And people really respond to that. They instantly get it. They instantly love that, just like I I always tell people the flavors more than just the sweetness come through when you add it to your food and beverage. And it just really showcases that quality about the product. So it's been really successful for us. Of course, it does take additional training and effort and time, but I really think, especially since we're having those more engaging interactions, I think it's worth it.
And you charge for the beverage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, in a way, it's a way to mitigate the cost of sampling. You're actually having somebody pay you to sample your product and see how best it can be used and then sell it. We're constantly telling our prepared food vendors that, partly because we have sort of a de-emphasis on prepared food because we're in a restaurant district, but we're always trying to encourage our prepared food vendors to create grocery products and say, let somebody take that taste they crave home with them. So sell a bottle of that sauce that you put on your sandwich or the seasoning that you use on your food. And you kind of came at it from the other direction, starting as a grocery product and then adding a prepared food product, but it has the same kind of synchronicity where tasting one will lead to purchasing the other. So I think it's a really smart way to grow and evolve your product line.
Yeah, and it's great too because shoppers can see how you do it and then be like, oh, okay, so they added the nectar and then you put in, the soda water, however you do it. I just think that's a really kind of like additional level of education or instruction, kind of in the same way that we might have a chef demo showing shoppers how to use fennel at home or something. And then they leave with both knowing how to make themselves a soda and the product.
Right.
Yeah, when you're selling an ingredient product, it's kind of tough sometimes because you're like, hey, use this in this other thing that you're making. Like, I swear it'll taste good. So it's nice to have at least one of the options because I know that your product is really versatile. But it's at least like, hey, at the very least, you can make this really delicious soda. And so then the customer can walk away at least knowing how to do one thing and then, of course, trying the other ways that you can use it, which are pretty simple and I feel like it's an easy to use product but might feel overwhelming to some shoppers. It's really nice to have that, especially when when you're selling an ingredient because that's hard to sample. You can taste it, but that's not really the intention of how the customer will use it. They're not going to spoon it into their mouth. So giving them something, well, they could. They could.
You're tipping that little jar.
I mean, I would, but
a spoonful of Domaine Santé makes the medicine go down.
That's right.
That's right. Exactly.
So clever,
true.
though. Just really, really clever. Yeah.
And I know you have good relationships with your fellow vendors, Emily. I think you guys did some kind of joint gift boxes or purchasing boxes when the markets were closed to a lot of grocery vendors. I know that you kind of worked with some cooperative groups to bring market products together and sell them. Do you do the same thing now that you're back at the farmers markets? Are you cross-promoting with other vendors and using other vendors' ingredients and that kind of thing?
Yeah, we do that in a number of ways, actually. I mean, I feel that in terms of, the difficulties that we all faced during COVID, bringing more of us together in kind of like a communal sense was really like a synergistic business move. We found people really responding well to the fact that they could find, 4 or 5 items in a one-stop shop that worked well together in a gift bag that they can send to someone, maybe they haven't seen in 6 months to a year. So we had a really great experience with that during COVID. And we kept one of our gift bags on that people could still purchase just because people loved it so much. And the vendors have all been really, really thinking that it was a great idea too. And so we have kept that going through the holidays. I don't know. I don't see why we wouldn't stop it after the holidays. But then we also use we use a number of different vendors in our soda bar also. So we did over the Thanksgiving time a pumpkin spice from our neighbor Smidge in one of our sodas so that, they could literally see the application for that too. So they could purchase their pumpkin spice blend, their grape nectar, go home and make it themselves. We try to keep it simple so that they can recreate these beverages at home too.
Yeah, I know when we welcomed Emily back, both Emily and Smidge, her neighbor at the market, had asked if we could rearrange things so that they could be next door to each other, and we were able to accomplish that. Yes, and Smidge had come back just a little bit sooner. He had some health issues that kept him out of the market for a while, and it was great to be able to put them back together as neighbors. And,
we were happy to be back with them too.
Yeah, really fun. Well, it's really good to have you back at the markets, and it's been great having you here today. Any last tips that you'd impart to new vendors, new people developing grocery products to take out into the market?
I think just really listen. I mean, more than anything, just stop and listen and take the time to listen, because you can learn so much from your customers and potential customers that you couldn't find anywhere else. So definitely, think about that every time you're dragging your tent out of your car early in the morning. It is definitely worth it.
It's a perfect focus group.
That's
Yep.
right.
Well, thanks for being with us, and we'll see you at the market, Emily.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Tent Talk today, and big thanks to Sticker Mule for supplying farmers market vendors and operators with everything from labels and stickers to buttons and packaging with their easy online order system, and for supporting Tent Talk, the farmers market podcast. To get more information or place your order, click the Sticker Mule logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Farmers markets are all about connection, and all of us, operators, farmers, and vendors, keep learning. Join us and your fellow market participants at the 6th Annual Intense the Farmers Market Conference in San Diego, California on March 7th, 8th, and 9th, 2022 to grow your market and your community. Connect with people just like you from various parts of the country and share what's happening in your area in the terrific conversations over in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community. You can also message us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros or email us at connect@farmersmarketpros.com. Thanks for listening to Tent Talk. Please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you access your podcast, and tell us and others how you're enjoying Tent Talk. If you are listening on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss the next episode. Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is proudly produced by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni-Mead. Original music by David Mead. Thank you so much for listening today, and we'll have another great episode next week. Tune in.